Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NTI PodTalk. My name is Dianne Kaler, and I'm the Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. This PodTalk is our opportunity to have fun conversations with interesting people who have interesting things to say about nutrition, food, and health. I talk to NTI instructors, students and grads, to health industry professionals, to farmers, and anyone else who has an interest in nutritional wellness. While many of our listeners come from within the NTI community as students and grads, we also have prospective students who tune in. And to those listeners in particular, I hope you find that the people we talk to inspire you to finally make the jump to pursue your passion and come to school here at NTI. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hi, everyone. This is Dianne Kaler, Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. Welcome back for another edition of the NTI PodTalk. Today, we have a graduate of NTI, Valerie Federwitz, on because we are doing a series about the NANP board exam to become board certified in holistic nutrition. And Valerie is a graduate who has taken and passed that exam. So I thought I would talk to her to find out a little bit about why she chose to take the exam and her process and all that kind of stuff. So thank you so much, Valerie, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, if you can just tell us when you graduated from NTI and a little bit about why you wanted to become a nutrition therapist.
I graduated from NTI in June of 2022, so just a little bit over a year ago now. I do have a little bit of a personal backstory, as many of the NTI students and people in this space. When my kids were younger, my third child had just a lot of odd symptoms going on, GI and joint pain and things like that. And we tried all kinds of things. And ultimately, I just decided to focus on the food. I had no training at that point, just kind of Dr. Google or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And that just seemed to be, the place we hadn't really harnessed, the possibilities of that yet. And after we started, certainly it was a long journey, but there were amazing improvements, and I just could not deny what was going on. And so as that time went on and as he got better and better, I was just like, I need to get some science-based education so that I can knowledgeably talk about these things with other people, because I didn't want to just be like, well, I read this on the internet,
Right.
What do I know?
Right.
I wanted something to back up, what I was going to be talking about to people. So I chose NTI ultimately.
Great. Well, we are happy you made that choice. So you don't live locally here. We're located in Arvada, Colorado, and you don't live here locally. You took courses remotely in our online program. How long did it take you to complete the program?
It took me 3.5 years. I did take a 6-month kind of leave of absence. We made a move. Actually, we had lived overseas for quite a long time. So I started my NTI education overseas. So I was really happy that it had an option to do, these independent classes. So I didn't have to be, up at 2 a.m. online with a group of people.
Yeah.
So yeah, we moved from West Africa back to the United States. So I took some time just to do that process and jumped back in and finished up.
Great. Wow, what an experience to live overseas, especially in Africa. I imagine that was a fascinating experience.
It was. We lived there for 17 years, so it became home, and not as unusual as most people think But
yeah. Wow. Fascinating. All right. Well, so you came to NTI, and then after you graduated, you decided to pursue board certification and take the NAMP board exam. Can you talk about reasons why you chose to get board certified? And let me just, for the listeners, state that board certification is not required in order to practice as a nutrition therapist, but there certainly are benefits to getting board certified. And we recommend that all of our graduates do go on to take the board exam, but it is in no way required. So I'll just state that first. But from your personal perspective, can you talk about what made you decide to want to pursue board certification?
Well, even when I was looking for a place to get my education, and I was reading on the NTI website just about what the future looks like for graduates, board certification really caught my attention. At that point, I had no idea what I would really end up doing with it. But I thought, well, if that's a thing and NTI really preps you for that, I mean, that's got to be definitely a good sign. So it had already been in the back of my mind that I could do this, and it kind of just was a personal challenge maybe to myself. I feel like it's one thing to go through a course and take the exams as you're going along, and you're just focusing on one topic,
right.
and doing well, but then to take a comprehensive exam like the board certified in holistic nutrition exam was like, okay, this is really where it comes down to, are you really prepared to head out into the wide world of nutrition, education and practice?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, of course, being board certified creates a higher level of credentials for people. And I think that can be very beneficial, particularly if you live in certain states where the practice, availability to practice as a nutrition therapist can be a little bit more restricted. Having that board certification opens up some of that capacity. So
Right.
Yeah, there are lots of reasons to take the board exam. So what was the application process like? I know that they kind of have a very in-depth application process. How did that go for you?
Yeah, there were a lot of things. I actually just created myself a checklist so I wouldn't forget to do anything and be caught, in a bind at some point.
Right.
So yeah, I had to contact NTI and get my transcript sent. I had to update my resume and send that in. I updated my student membership in the NANP to a professional membership, which is part of the requirement to take the exam. Let's see, paid my fees, and then after that, then they had me send a link to a couple of people to be references, professional and personal. So that was part of it too.
Great, good. And what about the requirement for the 500 contact hours? How did you navigate that?
I'm a nutrition and wellness consultant for the international missionary organization I've been a part of for 21 years. So as I went through after I finished my education with NTI, they said, we'd really like to utilize your new skills and new knowledge to help the missionaries and staff to maintain and optimize their health too. So that's how I filled my 500 hours.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's really good. All right. So I know that they provide resources to use to study for the exam. I'm sure you use those resources. Can you talk about kind of that process of using those resources? And then did you add anything else to your study process?
I really felt like the exam guide that they give, the NP provides an exam guide, really, really, really helpful in understanding the breadth of the topics that were going to be asked. And also, certainly they had a book list. I did not purchase all those books. I did buy a few of them. And then I thought, well, probably a lot of my NTI books and materials are similar enough that, I can look at these topics on the guide and find those back in my my materials. Also, the NANP on their website has pages about the scope of practice and the ethics, which is also part of the questions asked on the board exam. So studied those websites as well to prepare.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, did you feel like after having your education at NTI that you were well prepared to get into the study process? Like, you still have to study, but were you well prepared for that? Was there anything that created a challenge or anything that you came across that you're like, I have never heard of that before in my life?
I don't remember anything like that. There was maybe one or two terms that possibly were the same as something I had learned, but maybe in a little bit of different terminology. So I just had to kind of look that up and be like, oh yeah, I understand what that means.
Yeah.
I felt very well prepared. I did study, but
sure.
like there's no way I could have studied all of those things into depth, to prepare for the exam if I hadn't basically, 90% of the knowledge already gained, and just had to kind of remember things that I had maybe forgotten, those little details, because it really seemed like, any number of thousands and thousands and thousands of questions could be asked. So it's like, going through my anatomy and physiology book, going, okay, which systems are likely to be asked about? Certainly a digestive system, but what else could possibly be on the exam?
Right, exactly. How long did you study? Like how long was it between the time you applied and took the exam? I don't know what their timing is, but how long did it take you to get ready to and do your study process?
Well, from the time I actually applied, it was only about 2 months. But the exam guide is on the website, readily available to anybody. So I had already familiarized myself with that. I had kind of set a personal goal. 2 years ago, I went to my first HealCon conference, and then when I was there, I saw all the ribbons on people's name tags, and I saw that board certified ribbon, and I thought to myself, next year I want to have that ribbon.
Nice.
So as the calendar turned and the months were starting to go into this year, I thought, oh, I better hurry up and get this process going.
Yeah.
So it was about 2 months from the time I applied to the time I took the exam, but I had been preparing probably about 3 months.
Great. Good. All right. So let's talk about like the actual process of taking the exam. I know it's an online exam where it's proctored, someone is watching you. So can you talk about that process, and was that did that create any challenges or anything? And then, did you have test anxiety? Were you nervous about it? And what did you do to calm yourself?
Well, as far as the proctoring process and the actually like taking the exam, I had a lot more anxiety about the technology Like, is it all going to work? What happens if there's a glitch?
Right.
Is something going to pop up on my computer that's not supposed to, and I'm going to get in trouble? So I'm like trying to close all the things I can possibly close so that there's no pop-ups.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I mean, it ended up being relatively painless, but I think that was probably the biggest anxiety on the test day was the tech, which was just all made up in my mind because I'm not a tech person. So
right. Yes, I would
imagining.
I would be in the same situation because I also am not a tech person. So I always have to call in my husband, and I know they don't allow other people. So that wouldn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as like the test, I'm not a person that usually gets test anxiety, but like in the weeks kind of leading up to it, I started feeling this just uncomfortable anxiety, and I was like, what is going on? So I really had to kind of dig down deep into myself and see, okay, what's at the root of this anxiety? And I guess what I came out of that thought process with is just kind of the reassurance of, as a Christian, I believe that God has a plan for my life, and he doesn't have a plan A if I pass the exam and a plan B if I don't. Like, his plan is his plan. And so whatever happens with this exam or with any other thing in my life, it's part of the plan. And so I could just kind of rest assured that whatever happened, it was going to be okay. And there was, there's a way forward, and the plan is still the plan. I just don't know what it was.
Right. Exactly. All right. And in taking the exam, as you're sitting there actually taking it, you've done all your prep work. Was there anything that came up on the exam that just blindsided you, that, like, I did not even study anything about that or whatever, I couldn't remember that, like any of those kinds of challenges in the process of taking the exam?
Well, I have to admit that it's really a blur in my mind now. It's like, now that it's over, it's over.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I was, as part of the process, you are allowed to bring a blank sheet of paper to the exam and a pen. So I jotted notes, but then they also say you should destroy them when you're done, which I also did. I think probably I was more tuned into, like, okay, is there a trick? Not a trick, like a mean trick, but are they asking something like, which of these is not, or which of these is? Am I going to like miss a word that changes the meaning completely?
Right.
So I was more kind of in tune to those things. And
most
of them are, there's only one answer, but then some of them are choose all that apply. And like,
those can get kind of tricky.
Especially
if you miss one of those words, which one is not, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah, absolutely. And now looking back on it, you obviously passed the exam. Are you are you happy with how you did on the exam? Obviously you passed, so that makes you happy, but
yes,
do you have any like regrets, wish you would have done better than you did? I don't know what your grade was, but how do you feel about that?
I feel pretty good. Certainly I did not get 100%. So there are things I could have done better, and they do at the end kind of break down which sections you got which scores on, so I could see, which I was like super accurate on, and which I might have some work to do. But I mean, ultimately, like, life is not an exam, and when I came to the exam, I had what was in my brain. That's it. But now I have I have all the resources available to me.
Right.
So like, I don't have to worry about going into, a one-on-one with somebody with just my brain. So
Yes. Yeah.
thankful for that.
Yeah. Right. Well, aren't we all? Because we all have to rely on resources.
Right.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, any advice you would give to, current students that are planning to take the exam after they graduate, or grads who are sitting there like, should I take it? Should I take it? Do you have any advice to those people?
I think my only piece of advice would be not to wait too long,
Uh-huh.
because then I think maybe you start to, okay, I don't feel like I waited too long. I think, it was less than a year.
Right.
But I could imagine that you'd be like, oh, it's been so long since I was in school. I'm going to have forgotten all this. It's going to be too hard, which I also don't think is true, certainly. But you can easily psych yourself out of doing something kind of hard,
Yeah.
like, taking the exam. Yeah, I guess that would be my main piece of advice. Don't wait.
I think I think that's great advice, because, we even have students who, you said that you took like a 6-month break in school. We have students who take, year-long or couple of year-long breaks where they start school and then they take a very long extended break and then they come back. And even that can be challenging, to kind of get caught up on everything that you learned. But when you're not using it on a daily basis, you forget it easily. So I think that's great advice. Yeah. All right. So now that you have your board certification, BCHN certification, have you have any new doors opened? Has anything changed about the way you practice or the way you're allowed to practice in the state that you live in based on your new certification?
I don't believe that there's anything that changes as far as state laws. And as far as me personally, I have an employment in a job that I love to do with people I love. So I'm not currently really looking for new doors to be open. I am hoping actually to open my own practice maybe before the end of the year, kind of working on that as well as what I'm currently doing. So I do think the BCHN credential is going to give me a lot more credibility, in my community and with other practitioners in this space, to say, yeah, okay, this is not just some, couple months course or some, a rubber stamp from some unknown whatever. But
Right.
I have a whole professional community behind me.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. And certainly the NANP is definitely that. So yeah, that's awesome. All right. So why don't you talk about what you are doing now? You sort of mentioned the organization that you work with, but talk to us about what you do and the type of people that you work with. I think we'd love to hear about that.
Okay, so it is an international missionary organization. So we have people that live overseas, like my family and I did for a long time. And we have an office staff, which is, I live in the community where the office is at. So I basically just make myself available to talk to anybody about anything. Whether, it's hormonal shifts, in your 40s, or it's, working on rebuilding gut health after antibiotics, or, let's see, just maybe eating more vegetables. It's like, we run the gamut of things that, we're focusing on or we're being made aware of. Yeah, so basically I try to also, we have a kind of an in-house network. So I send out, I post on our internal social media, just sharing websites, sharing recipes, podcasts, things about supplements. Like, you might want to think, cold and flu season's coming up. Let's talk about vitamin C, things like that. And then just also making people aware of things that they might not realize are super impactful, such as sleep or, the way you breathe and different things that just overall wellness topics. I just hope I can just touch people, in different ways, and hopefully meet them where they are having a need or a concern, something they want to improve.
Now, do you work with any of those missionaries who are, I don't know if the stationed is the right word, but that's the word that's coming to my head, stationed in these other countries? Do you work with them one-on-one, or is it more of a, group and you're just sending information out? Do you ever interact with them one-on-one doing that individual personalized counseling?
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
They get in touch with me, and
yeah,
we have one young couple who recently had a baby, so they were talking to me about first foods and being that family in particular. I actually they live in the context I used to live in, so I'm very familiar with that. It's not the same with everybody else. They're all kinds of different places, but so I was able to talk to them, I guess, with a little bit more knowledge about where they're at, what's available, and how they can really tap into the things that are available to them, to support their little family.
Well, that's that's kind of interesting to me. Do you find that of course, you haven't been in all the location where you have missionaries that you're working with, but do you find that they're based on where they're located, that there are obstacles for them to be able to access kind of high quality foods, or is everyone able to figure out within the region where they are stationed the regionally appropriate high quality foods that they can access to make sure that they're consuming a nutrient dense diet?
Well, not everyone in every place has reached out to me, so I haven't had touch points everywhere.
Sure.
I do believe that based on my experience, I would be able to ask them questions and point them in directions to finding out that information. So in one other example, someone was talking to me about oils, cooking oils. Like, okay, all that's available here is these industrial seed oils. What can I do? How do I deal with this? And my advice was for her to talk to the local people and ask about the culture and ask about, how do they eat in their homes? Even maybe not currently, because those things have really infiltrated a lot of corners of the world, but traditionally, what were they cooking with? How did they, what oils and fats did they use in their traditional cooking to see, okay, are those things still available, maybe in some quiet corner where they're not in the grocery stores or whatever, but could you go to a market and find the people that still make this, or how do you access those things?
That's great advice. That is a challenge with these quote unquote foods of modern convenience, infiltrating traditional regional diets, food preparation techniques that have been used for thousands of years, and now suddenly they're having to change based on the fact that this westernized highly processed foods are infiltrating their food systems. It's unfortunate, but just like you, I still think that there are people who, in their own homes, they're like, my grandmother has been eating this way. My grandmother's grandmother has been eating this way. I'm going to keep doing it. And they still have ways to figure out how to access those ingredients, not through a central market, but through an uncle who, goes out and gets it himself or whatever. So I think that's great advice. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, I don't have any other questions for you except to, if people wanted to learn more about you or what you do you have any kind of contact information, website? Do you have a website of your own that we could direct people to learn more about what you do and maybe your future practice that you're thinking about opening?
I do not have a website.
That's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I just have an email address.
Okay.
So Valerie.Federwitz@gmail.com.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, anybody can contact me. Yeah, I haven't really started up anything kind of out there in the public yet. So
yeah. Well, when you do start your business, make sure you get a posting on our graduate page on our website so that people will be able to access that from our website. And you never know, someone might listen to this who wants to partner with you in your work, working with missionaries or some way, shape, or form. So anything could happen. We're always,
absolutely.
Yeah, we always love to hear about the connections that our graduates and students are making with each other, and then in other areas in the food and wellness community. And so it's always fun to hear about these connections that are made and these ideas that start out as little tiny sparks and then suddenly hatch into a new business. So it's great. Yeah, awesome. All right, well, is there anything that you wish I would have asked you that you want to share, or about the board exam process or anything else?
I don't think so.
All right.
We covered most of the main things.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Valerie. It was really nice talking to you.
Thank you. It was enjoyable for me also.
Good. Hi there, and thanks for listening today. If what you heard today inspires you to want to pursue an education in holistic nutrition here at Nutrition Therapy Institute, please check us out on our website, ntischool.com, and reach out to us at admissions@ntischool.com. Our in-depth, comprehensive education is sure to provide you with the knowledge and skills you need to create the work of your dreams. Do something that feeds your passion, aligns with your values, and fuels your drive for a vital and meaningful life. It will be rewarding for yourself, your family, and anyone else with whom you interact. And with that, see you on the next episode.